Hi, I'm Pastor Mark. The church I serve, this one, is Dietz Memorial at 1423 10th Street, south of the Old Market. Dietz was built in 1888 during a time period in our country's history known as the Gilded Age, due to the burgeoning prosperity of the upper classes brought on by the Industrial Revolution. The church building, along with its pipe organ and stained glass windows, could be called a relic of the Gilded Age, as it manifested itself in the relatively backwater city of Omaha at that time. Dietz Church is listed in the National Register of Historic Places under the name of St. Matthias's Episcopal Church. This is because it was originally built by the Episcopalians and later sold to the Methodists, who renamed it Dietz Memorial. Those Episcopalians who built the church must have included some very wealthy business people and industrialists, since they spared no expense. The church is made of Okido limestone in the Richardsonian Romanesque style with high vaulted ceilings and a slate roof. The stained glass windows were imported from Koch's Sons of Buckley, England in 1889. Now, those who were in charge of building and furnishing the church also looked to Europe in order to obtain a world-class pipe organ. And this pipe organ behind me is what this video is about. The organ builder they chose was a man named Philip Wershing from Stuttgart in what is now Germany. Wershing studied under one of the most famous organ makers in Germany at that time, Johann Nepomuk Holtze, and he apprenticed under the great French organ builder Aristide Cavalier-Cole, who had the reputation at that time of being the greatest organ builder, designer, and innovator. Wershing was invited to the Centennial Exhibition in Philadelphia in 1876, put on to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. And the reason he was invited was to exhibit one of his organs as part of an exhibition of the latest technological innovations around the world. The organ Wershing showcased at the exhibit was well received, and he was invited to stay in the United States to work on several other organ projects. But he only stayed in America for about 2 years before returning to Germany. One of Wershing's most significant contributions to the pipe organ design while in America was his work in improving the touch of the tracker action in pipe organs. Tracker action is a mechanism that connects the keys of an organ to the valves that control the flow of air to the pipes. Prior to Wershing's innovations, tracker action was often heavy and slow, making it difficult for organists to play with the desired speed and precision. Wershing's innovations helped to make the tracker mechanism more responsive and easier to play. He achieved this by using a combination of thinner, more flexible materials, as well as by making the action lighter and more balanced. Now, this had a significant impact on the development of organ style and technique around the world. Just as a violin made by Antonio Stradivari is worth restoring and preserving by virtue of the fact that Stradivari made it, so is an organ made by Philip Wershing worth restoring and preserving merely by virtue of the fact that he, Wershing, built it. The pipe organ at Dietz is worth restoring and preserving for another important reason as well. According to Ryan Lucky, the vice president and project manager of the Bedient Organ Company in Lincoln, our organ is the oldest pipe organ in Nebraska, still in its original building, in its original site. This is important since pipe organs must be custom designed to fit the acoustics of the room in which they were to be played. So if this pipe organ is so special, why wasn't it maintained so that we still are able to play it? Well, from the research I've done on our pipe organ, it has undergone major refurbishing 2 or more times throughout its 135 years of existence. However, in the 1960s, the little old lady who was the organist at Deets found it too difficult to press down the pipe organ pedals with her feet. While tracker pipe organs tend to have a stiffer action than electronic organs, It is my guess that this pipe organ just needed another round of refurbishing, and that would have gone a long way to solve the problem. Now, I don't know this for sure, but my guess is that the board thought they just could not afford the cost of refurbishing our 19th century pipe organ, but instead purchased a modern electronic pipe organ. After decades of non-use, the pipe organ at Deets fell into disrepair and has not worked for over 50 years. Now, the estimate Ryan Lucky gave last August for the pipe organ's restoration was $120,000 to $125,000. Now, I know this sounds expensive, especially to us older folk, but it is actually quite a bargain when compared to other pipe organ restoration projects in this area. For example, Dietz Organ is charging St. Paul's Lutheran Church in Council Bluffs a whopping $450,000 for the refurbishing of their, albeit larger, pipe organ. Now, those of us here at Deets realize, of course, that the buildings, furnishings, and grounds of a church fall mostly to the congregation. I mean, that's our responsibility. And given our small size and meager financial resources, we have done a pretty good job in fulfilling this responsibility over the years. For example, in the late 1990s, when the congregation was no larger than it is now, Deets managed to raise enough funds for the restoration of the sanctuary's stained glass windows, along with the installation of protective glass on the outside. There are, however, now a number of extenuating circumstances that we feel broadens the responsibility for taking care of our 19th century pipe organ and the church as a whole to the community at large, the Omaha Council Bluffs metro area. To begin with, the Deets congregation is just too small to take on the full responsibility for restoring our 19th century pipe organ. Besides that, we here at Deets have come to realize that the preservation of our pipe organ, as well as the church as a whole, depends upon becoming not just an asset for and responsibility for us as a congregation, but an asset and responsibility for the community at large, the Omaha Council Bluffs metro area. Now note that I said not just responsibility, but asset as well. This is why we are offering our church building and pipe organ to the larger community as both a venue and a destination in its own right. Now, let me first talk about the church as a venue. It is ideally located as a venue since it is near the airport and close to dozens of hotels and restaurants. It is also conveniently located between the Old Market to the north and Lawrenson Gardens and Henry Dorley Zoo to the south. This, along with the storybook look and feel of our sanctuary as well as the church building itself, is ideal for weddings, memorial service, recitals, art exhibits, you name it. But what do I mean by Deets becoming a destination in its own right? What I mean is that its historic and cultural significance makes it a site worth visiting over and beyond just being a venue for other events. It is comparable in the same sense to the Fred Astaire birthplace just a few blocks south on 2326 10th Street. The Nebraska Tourism Commission could advertise Deets as a destination where one could time travel back to the Gilded Age, since our church features the unique and elaborate aesthetic of this period in our country's history. You know, the Gilded Age could also be called the Mechanical Age, since mechanical devices reached an unprecedented degree of sophistication and complexity the latter part of the 19th century, just prior to the widespread use of electronics. Tracker pipe organs like the one at Deets offers a prime example of just such an elaborate mechanical device. I mean, after all, that's why Wershing was invited to the 1876 centennial celebration in Philadelphia, was to showcase his organ as an example of such a device. In contrast to us Americans, Europeans go to great lengths in trying to preserve their historic and cultural landmarks. We Americans are much more likely to regard what is new as superior to what is old, just because it's new, regardless of whether it actually improves our life or not. As a consequence, strip malls increasingly replace quaint farmsteads and old churches along with forests and pastures across the American landscape. And we seldom, if ever, question this rush to modernity. It is as if we can't wait to worship at the altar of our AI overlords in the not-too-distant future. Fortunately, there are at least a few of us oddballs left out there who believe it is important to preserve some of our more historically and culturally significant landmarks and artifacts. There's a good reason I know this. It's because when the article in the October 4th edition of the Omaha World Herald appeared about our pipe organ and our attempts to restore it, more than $20,000 came in from people. They just wanted to preserve this historic relic. And it is likely there are many more persons out there who did not read the article, who are also willing to donate to this project if given half a chance. And I want potential donors to know that my spouse and I have put our money where our mouth is by donating $5,000 to this project. I realize, of course, that most people cannot afford to give that much. But whatever you can afford will be much appreciated and forever remembered. And by that I mean I am keeping a record of all those who have made donations, no matter what the size. And these names will be logged in a book dedicated to our pipe organ and placed in a safe place in office downstairs. Anyone donating $1,000 or more will also have their names or whomever they wish to honor on a brass plate on the organ. You can donate by going to our website, dietzumc.org, and to the Organ Fund page and click on the Donate button there. If you want to mail a check directly to the church's P.O. Box, it will be in the description below, or you can just take a screenshot now. The Dietz Pipe Organ Committee is practicing a policy of 100% transparency regarding our finances. And anyone, whether they made a donation or not, has access to these financial records upon request, where we don't want to hide anything. Now, I've tried to make it clear in this video that the Dietz pipe organ, along with the church itself, are not just for this congregation, not anymore. It is for the Omaha Council Bluffs metro area as a whole, as well as for all of our posterity, our children and grandchildren. If we are unable to garner sufficient funds to restore the pipe organ at this time, it is possible, even likely, it will never be restored. And just imagine our children and grandchildren learning about this priceless relic of our past that we let disappear for no good reason. They will wonder how we could have been so fixated on the present, such that we could be so indifferent to the past as well as to the future. Thank you, and may God bless you.